Few Americans alive today remember the New World Screwworm. Until the 1960s, it cost the United States $100 million per year in food production losses. If it re-enters the United States, it could cost $2.1 billion in the cattle industry and $9 billion in the hunting and wildlife industry, just in Texas. As of recording this video, the New World Screwworm, NWS, has not re-entered the United States. However, over the past few years, a perfect storm of circumstances has brought it closer to our southern border. New World Screwworm has migrated to 70 miles south of the U.S.-Mexico border. We've had a couple of isolated imported cases. In January 2026, a horse from Argentina was treated in an equine import quarantine facility. In 2025, the CDC reported one human case that was acquired during a recent trip to El Salvador. The patient was treated and released. Currently, individual states and the federal government are ramping up prevention, detection, and treatment methods. However, some wildlife experts, veterinarians, and ranchers see the infestation as inevitable as spring approaches. We may be past time to completely prevent insurgence, but we still need to prepare. I'm Wanda Frazier. This is Your Body and You. A little history. Over a century ago, New World Screwworm was prevalent in the United States. By the 1960s, it was eliminated from the United States. By the early 2000s, collaborating countries had pushed the fly into the jungles of the Darien Gap in Panama, where it was easier to contain. In 2016, a small outbreak was reported in key deer in the Florida Keys. By 2017, it was once again eliminated. A little background. New World Screwworm, NWS, is the larvae or maggot of one species of blowfly native to the Western Hemisphere. The species name is Conchyliomya hominivorax, which translates to man-eater. This is a separate species from the Old World Screwworm, which is native to the Eastern Hemisphere. Screwworm refers to the way the maggots dig into the flesh of warm-blooded animals as they feed. Yes, it is as gross as it sounds. The description and stages of development of the fly relate, so I'm going to talk about those together. This adult fly can be difficult to distinguish from other species. It is 8 to 10 millimeters in length, twice the size of a housefly. Reddish-orange eyes, metallic blue-green color. There are 3 black stripes on the thorax. The middle stripe is shorter than the other 2. In this image, the NWS is on the left, labeled A. The adults live in subtropical regions. Adult males live for about 3 to 4 weeks. Adult females live about 1 to 3 weeks. During its reproductive process, the New World Screwworm becomes parasitic. The females mate, then travel 6 to 12 miles to lay their eggs in a living, warm-blooded host. These can include wildlife, ranch animals, pets, or people. They lay 100 to 300 eggs in an open wound or mucus site, such as an umbilical or castration site, flesh near antlers, insect bite, cattle branding scar, eyes, nose, mouth, or anus. The infestation is called myiasis. Maya refers to the fly. The eggs hatch in less than 10 hours. NWS larvae are about 17 millimeters long, with spines that resemble a screw. For about a week, the larvae use their sharp mouth hooks to burrow and feed on live tissue, including skin, muscle, organs, and bone. Unlike more familiar maggots, the New World Screwworm only eats live flesh. The animals they infest can be on the move, which aids in the fly's spread. The dying flesh of the host attracts other insects, which lay their eggs on top of the screwworm eggs. This leads to secondary infestations and infections. After about a week of feeding, the larvae fall out, enter soil if it is at least 46 degrees Fahrenheit, and pupate there for a little over a week until they emerge as adult flies. Below 46 degrees, the larvae don't survive. Development from the egg stage all the way to the adult stage takes less than 3 weeks. Signs and symptoms include a wound that does not heal or has a foul odor, pain or irritation. Inside the wound, you may see white dots instead of the entire larvae because of burrowing. There is movement inside of the wound. A non-human host animal may become restless, lose weight, or isolate from a herd. Within a week or two, a host can become severely injured or die from damaged organs, secondary infestations, or infections. So, act immediately if you see these signs or symptoms. For livestock and pets, call your local 24-hour veterinarian. For humans, contact a 24-hour health professional. Hours matter. If one care provider is unable to respond, contact someone else. Right then, not tomorrow. Isolate the host to prevent spread. Both veterinarians and clinicians can provide updated instructions for care while protecting other patients. Treatment. The only treatment that is 100% effective against New World Screwworm is to manually remove all of the eggs and larvae from the animal or human. This may involve forceps or surgery since the larvae bury deep into the flesh. The larvae are placed into a sealed container with 70% ethyl or isopropyl alcohol. A sample of the eggs or larvae will be sent for identification. For hosts that survive, veterinarians and clinicians will also remove and treat secondary infestations, infections, and dead tissue. New World Screwworm is a reportable condition both to the CDC and the USDA. For humans, there are no approved drugs to treat New World Screwworm. For other animals, there are 3 lists of drugs: approved drugs, conditionally approved drugs, and emergency use authorization drugs. These lists are current as of February 2026. Over the past couple of years, the public and private sectors have been asked to report any suspicious wounds or infections. Daily inspections of livestock can help manage the risk. Entomological traps and lures can detect New World Screwworm flies in a region. Examinations of wildlife and trap cameras can monitor NWS in wildlife. Some states, as well as hunting and wildlife groups, are asking the public to report any activity that might indicate New World Screwworm. Prevention. There are no vaccines to prevent New World Screwworm. For isolated cases of New World Screwworm, the above treatment protocols can save the host and prevent some local spread. But New World Screwworm also infests wildlife and livestock on a massive scale. Large-scale prevention for New World Screwworm uses these sterile insect technique, sit. Millions of male flies are sterilized with radiation and released in key areas. When the females mate with the sterile male flies, the eggs are not viable and do not hatch. Since females only reproduce once, the population of NWS shrinks. If the number of sterile male flies overwhelms natural males, New World Screwworm can disappear from an area. The suggested ratio is 9-1. During the height of prevention efforts, there were fly production plants in Florida, Texas, Mexico, and Panama. Stir flies were dropped in many countries in North America, Central America, and the Caribbean. Over time, the sterile insect technique was so successful that most of these plants closed. The plant in Panama was the only plant remaining to keep the flies confined to the Darien Gap. That plant produces 100 million sterile flies per week. Turns out, it wasn't enough. Things changed. Over the past 13 years, instability forced more people to travel north through the Darien Gap. More people, more livestock, more wildlife. The COVID-19 pandemic interrupted environmental surveillance and fly production in Panama. Increased intensity and shifting locations of storms carried the fly further from its original range. Warming ground and air temperatures allow it to proliferate faster in more northern locations, so climate change. Then came budget cuts. By March 2025, the federal government cut billions of dollars from the USDA. Thousands of staff were cut. Some of the 5,300 grants cut to the U.S. Agency of International Development included animal disease monitoring projects operated by the UN Food and Agricultural Organization. New World Screwworm slipped through all of the cracks. New World Screwworm spread when no one was paying attention. It breached the Darien Gap in 2022. The fly was identified in Panama in 2022 and Costa Rica in 2023. In 2024, it was detected in Belize, Nicaragua, Honduras, Guatemala, and Mexico. By November 2025, it reached northern Mexico. By mid-February 2026, these countries had over 150,000 cases in animals and more than 1,300 cases in humans. The current plan. The proposed use of the One Health approach would theoretically coordinate efforts between governments, agencies, the private sector, and nonprofits. This approach acknowledges the interconnection between humans, animals, and ecosystems. However, the current plan to detect, prevent, and treat New World Screwworm is confusing. In the past few years, the United States increased imports of beef to fill in gaps in local production. However, in November 2024, the U.S.-Mexico border closed for incoming cattle, bison, and horses until an inspection and treatment protocol for NWS was established. The border reopened in February 2025. May 2025, the border was closed again. It tried to reopen, and then July 2025, the border closed again. In February 2026, the U.S. executive branch vowed to increase imports of beef from Argentina. This is more confusing since the horse treated for New World Screwworm was imported from Argentina. The federal budget, including the USDA budget and goals, has been unpredictable and confusing. For example, between 2023 and 2024, the federal government approved $270 million for prevention, detection, and treatment of New World Screwworm. By March 2025, the federal government cut billions of dollars from the USDA. Thousands of staff were cut. Over 5,000 grants were cut. Farmer contracts were terminated or frozen. Then the government shut down. Over 24,000 government employees left. Conversely, in May 2025, the USDA transferred $21 million to refurbish a facility in Mexico to provide sterile flies. It is expected to open in the summer of 2026. It can add 60 to 100 million sterile flies per week. There is also a dispersal facility in Mexico. In 2026, the USDA in Texas built a $750 million sterile fly dispersal facility. It has a capacity of 300 million sterile flies per week. Also in 2026, the USDA offered a $100 million grant funding opportunity to support projects to prevent, detect, and treat New World Screwworm. The deadline for applications was in February. Recently, the U.S. has been using flies from the Panama plant. It began dropping them in Mexico and Texas. The facility in Panama has been slated for repairs, but I have not seen a time frame. The Panama plant can produce 100 million flies per week. The goal is to drop 500 million sterile flies a week to push the fly back to the Darien Gap. However, the Darien Gap is not the barrier it used to be. There is some discussion within the science community about the potential for the deliberate extinction of New World Screwworm. So far, it seems to be just a discussion. So be diligent. Act immediately if you see a suspicious wound or infection on an animal or person. Please like, subscribe, and share this video. Share something useful because none of us have time for nonsense right now. Stay safe. I'm Wanda Frazier. This is Your Body and You.